Resolution 132-13 amends salary ordinance number 13-50 by amending section 3B by increasing the affected pay grades by 4% for the legislative branch. Implements new pay grade increase of 4% for appointed positions in the legislative branch except for the LE2 legal specialist position. Reference communication 317 introduced by Mr. Yoshimoto, waived FC, postponed June 18, 2013. Note, there's a pending motion by Mr. Yoshimoto and duly seconded by Mr. Nishin to approve Resolution 132-13. There is a pending subsequent motion to amend Resolution 132-13 with communication 317.1 by Ms. Ford and duly seconded by Mr. Kanuha, and communication 317.1 from Councilmember Brenda J. Ford dated June 17, 2013, transmitting proposed amendments to Resolution 132-13, amending the CA1, CA2, and CLA1 pay grades.
Okay, may I have there's a pending motion, so this matter is live on the floor. I'm going to be handing over the chair to Ms. Eoff, as this is something that I've introduced.
Okay, thank you. I'll assume the chair.
Okay, Ms.
Mr. Yoshimoto.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. There's a pending motion by Ms. Ford. I was going to actually, well, let me just kind of...
On the motion.
Well, okay, there's a motion to amend by Ms. Ford, and that's, let me go find it here. 317.1, okay. My thoughts on this, council members, is, I remember at the last time we talked about this for quite a long time, and I thought that we were, getting a little off track. I really want to just keep this simple, meaning just keep the scope to what it says, which is the 4%, and I really don't want to talk about the amendment, actually. I'm going to be voting against the amendment because I think that we should, again, just focus on this issue here. I don't mind talking about the issue of steps or changing the steps and things like that, but I think that goes beyond the scope of this legislation. So I would be against that amendment. Thank you.
Mr. Alago?
Go ahead.
Ms. Ford?
I withdraw communication 317.1.
Thank
And I move to amend Resolution 170-13 with the contents of communication 317.2. And I need a second. Ms. Willie just seconded me. I don't agree with Mr. Yoshimoto as far as keeping this just to the 4%. We have employees that have been here for many years that have never had a pay increase for that period of time. And if you look at 317.2, you will see that we lowered the base pay, which is horrifically low, for the CA1 and the CA2. By the way, the CA1 is a council aide. A CA2 is a council aide, but that council aide reports to the chair. They're doing the exact same job as all of your council aides, and there's no reason for a difference in their pay scale. So all I'm doing is making the A step and the B step, the C step, and I'm taking care of all of that. And there's 5% between each grade, as we discussed the last time. On the SA1, which is the special assistant to the chair, they don't have a D step. And that's what I mean when I say some of these people have been in these positions for years and not received a pay increase. So I do think that we should clear up these kinds of salary discrepancies at this time. Thank you.
I couldn't hear what she said. Can I ask her a quick question?
Would you like to?
Can I?
Ms. Willie, would you like to ask a question?
I couldn't, that last one you said on what was it, on the CLA?
No.
The essay or something.
317.2 discusses the CA1 and CA2, which are identical positions, just one of them happens to report to the chair.
Okay.
It's not a special assistant. The SA1 is the special assistant.
Where's SA1?
Down at the bottom of the page. On communication,
Sorry, on
317.2.
communication,
Oh,
317.2.
okay, that's what I'm not looking at.
It's the only
Were you
classification.
handed that, Ms. Willie?
Okay.
It was passed
Okay,
out.
that's what I'm not, fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, thank
have
you.
it? Okay.
What does SA2 stand for? Special Assistant? I'm
Yes.
sorry.
The SA1 is the special assistant to the chair, and it does not have a D step. It's the only thing in the whole council, the legislative branch, that doesn't have a D step. The CA2 also doesn't have a D step, and I've adjusted for that as well.
Ms. Poindexter?
Okay, because the problem I have with that is, we're looking at Jay's one, it says 4%. This one is an 11% increase if I'm, because if you're crossing out 27 and going up to 30,300, that's an 11% increase. Isn't that, or am I? Right, we're looking at a little more than, in fact, a little more than 11% increase. So those are big jumps.
Okay, do you understand that the CA position, oh, I'm sorry, I was not called on, I'm sorry.
Yeah, because see, when I look at, okay, then I go to the CA2 positions, and if I go to the CA2 position, then it's a 7% increase on the first CA2, then on B and C, it drops to a 6% increase. But I see what you're trying to do is you're trying to make it equivalent to the CA1, but those CA1s are jumping over 11% each.
Are you asking a question?
Yeah, I mean, from my calculation, so that's why I like the 4%. I don't mind doing a 4% increase. I think the 11% increase is, to me, a bit out of the ballpark on what our budgets, and I think maybe looking at this when we come to the next budget fiscal year, I think this would be very appropriate looking at it during the budget cycle versus now. I see where Jay's going with the 4% because looking at the cost of living increases that has never been given to them during those past years, and then taking a furlough on top of that. So I don't mind supporting it. I still have a hard time supporting an increase at this time because I feel that this should happen in the budget year. But to jump to an 11% increase, I couldn't do that. So that's where I stand, so I yield at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Yoshimoto, would you like to explain why you did the
Yes.
4%?
If I could, and then I'll let the discussion continue. Okay, the 4% increase, as council members will remember from last time, was based upon, I believe it's Unit 13, HGA. They were still in the process of negotiating their next contract. At the time they introduced this resolution, different units or other units of HGA had already completed or approved their contract, but Unit 13 was pending. So the 4% number came from what at the time that we did the resolution of the other I think it was Unit 3. I could be mistaken on that exact number, but they negotiated 4%. And then recently, within the last month, Unit 13 also came to a 4% increase. So we've, in the legislative branch, we've followed the contracts of our employees, matching it with what's negotiated by our civil service employees here at the legislative branch. So that's why, council members, I wanted to keep it simple, and that I don't mind talking about the other steps and increases and other things in a different legislation, but this one here, I just want to keep it simple because that's all, that at least I'm asking for in this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Onishi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I also won't be supporting this amendment because as Mr. Yoshimoto had stated, that the union members had gotten a 4% pay raise, and I think we should just honor that and not giving them step movements. And also what was explained, or what was being to justify this, was that people are in certain positions for a long period of time, and I don't think not all of them are, because a lot of them are new staff now. And so I don't see, because like in a regular civil service, years of service counts as your step movements. Like if you have, like I said in the past, if you guys remember, like the contract would say every 5 years you move one step up. Like other than that, it's like a 4% across the board, and that's it. And that's what they're gaining, so I cannot support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ilagan, I bypassed you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also won't be supporting this, and I'll be sticking to the original bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kern?
Thank you, Ms. Poindexter.
You called her Miss Poindexter.
I was looking at you while I was addressing the chair.
That's okay.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Madam Chair. I love the intention of it. I too can't support it though right now. I think we should bring this back up and maybe have this discussion during the budget process and see where we're at with it. But I absolutely, there needs to be a raise for these folks for sure. Just right now isn't the right time. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ford.
Thank you. I think what maybe I haven't explained well is that most of the brand-new staff that came in step D. They didn't start down at A. They came in at step D. They're not going to get any more raises, and, you know, frankly, those of us who've been here for a while and our staff learned their jobs and got the pay raises that they have, these pay rate increases, which I calculate the bottom CA1 and CA2 is 9+%. If you look at comparable jobs across the county, we're underpaying our employees that are in the CA positions at step A. Unfortunately, to the best of my knowledge, nobody here is paying anybody at step A. Most, if not all of us, are paying at step D. So this isn't going to impact anybody. It's not going to impact the budget this year. Neither will step B or step C. And the budget was based on the preceding year's salaries. So I'm a little concerned as to why everybody's concerned that we're giving people who don't even exist in that pay grade a pay raise to get them up to something comparable for the same type of job in other divisions of the county. It doesn't seem reasonable. But, it's up to the council. If they don't want to give people raises, non-existent people raises, that's okay. It's up to you.
Ms. Poindexter?
But I understand. I would love to say I would love to give an 11% increase, but even on D, where the people are getting paid the highest salary there, it's still an 11% increase. Yeah, when I calculate it, it still is an 11%, even more than an 11% increase. So I'm okay with the 4% increase. I don't like the 11% plus increase. So anyway, so that's what, and I understand the D when you have the CA2s. I agree that at some point we should talk about having that on the books, but I don't think, like I agree with Jay, it's not at this time.
Council members, is there any other comments? Ms. Swilley?
Well, I support raising the CA1 and CA2. I do think, down 30, 31, I don't know how anyone can survive on that. And I think that we're doing this and overlooking really the burden, the job that those people are doing. And I can't survive on the salary we get. So, this is like way low. And maybe you all just use your council aide, sit and answer occasional telephone call, but I don't see that happening. And I think that the benefits should go along with the burden, and, moving something to 31 to 35. I mean, we have, what is our deputy clerk? It's 99,000 or something. I just find these things are just out of whack, and at least in this case, we could correct one thing that's out of whack. So I appreciate, let's be more organized and wait till the budget, but I just think it's a real shame. So, I yield.
Thank you. Mr. Yoshimoto.
Oh, I just wanted to respond to Ms. Willie's comments. Ms. Willie, I just wanted to keep the 4% because that was the intent of the resolution. I don't mind talking about what Ms. Ford's talking about in a different piece of legislation, because I do think it needs to be addressed. All the things that we mentioned before, if you recall, I think was a good discussion, but just not in this particular piece, because I think, what I'm prepared to move forward on was just a simple 4%, because this is what the civil service got, this is what, so that's the rationale. But I make no comment on the other things that you bring up. I think they're valid issues that need to be hashed out, just not.
Separate piece of
that's
I
just so
can
that's
go along with that.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to speak? Okay, Mr. Kanuha.
Yeah, when Mr. Yoshimoto just explained that, I completely agree with that. I love what Ms. Ford has done with this, and I have no problem with supporting something like this at a future date for sure. I agree with that, to keep it simple, with the 4%, I'm fine with that. I know, especially one of my staff has been there for a long time, as Ms. Ford knows too, and completely deserves every penny of that pay. I mean, they worked their butts off, completely worked their butts off. So, this is a hard one, but I'm going to go with the simple one for now with Mr. Yoshimoto, with the original bill, and I'll just keep that at that. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Poindexter.
Yeah, and I just got to say, to me, these are really good wages. I know what you're saying, that how can people live off of that, but in our rural communities, they're making $9 and $10 an hour, and that's just how it is. And when the people we appoint knew what they were coming into, they can accept it or not accept it. And we got to remember the terms that we're allowed to run is for 4 2-year terms. So if a person is here for 6 years or 8 years or whatever, that was by their good luck that some other new council member picks them up, but based on this category of what the pay is. Because if you remember way back when, the council members didn't have the luxury of having their own staff. The staff was all based here on the bottom, and they shared, like Maui, I think it's like Kauai. Kauai has, it's like how Hilo had it. They were just regular staff. You had clerks and you had legislative assistants, and everybody shared them. And then that was equal pay. So now that they're appointed positions, if we're lucky if we stay in for 4 terms, then that's why the bump of an A, B, C, D. But if the person moves out of that position and a new council person comes in and says, hey, Sunshine, I want to keep you because Val's not here. That's starting again. It should have been on A, and unfortunately we started on D, yes. However, I agree that there needs to be some increase at this time, but I think the 4%, we've struggled through the budget, and now we're going, I cannot see going in for a big increase now. I can see talking about that later, but we also need to look at what we had before, what worked, and the reason why now we have the luxury of pulling the staff that was downstairs and appointing our own staff. You got to look at that and just be thankful for what we have now from what it was. So I just want to be thankful for what it is. The 4% I'm okay on. I'm not okay with giving more than 4% at this time, so thanks.
Mr. Kanuha.
Thank you. Cost of living and it's extremely hard to live, especially in my district, Central Kona. You can't get a studio for less than $1,000 a month. It's very expensive. It's very hard to live especially myself. I can't leave my district, and you can't even buy a house in Central Kona for under $400,000. So it's hard to live with the amount of pay that they're getting. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Mr. Yoshimoto, did you have any other comments?
No, that takes care of it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Then just before we go to the vote, just in closing, I'm not going to support the amendment, although I agree with what everybody is saying about soon we need to look at pay raises. But the whole thrust of this resolution is based on the union raise that increased about 4%, and that's why Mr. Yoshimoto put this forward. So I would like us to consider adopting this as is, and then in the future take a look at the equitable pay raise that similar to what Ms. Ford has suggested. So, Mr. Clerk.
On the motion to amend, Ms. Ford,
Aye.
Mr. Iligan,
No.
Mr. Kanuha,
Kanalua, no.
Mr. Kern,
Kanalua, no.
Mr. Onishi, no. Ms. Poindexter,
No?
Ms. Willie,
Aye.
Mr. Yoshimoto,
No.
Chair Yoff.
No.
Chair Yoff, you have 2 ayes and 7 noes.
Thank you. The motion to amend fails. Back to the main motion. Is there any more discussion?
I
Mr.
have a
Onishi.
question for Mr. Yoshimoto, for the chair. Okay, so this term, so the council members, the new council members could set each of their staff at a certain rate.
At the beginning of the term, that's what they did, yes.
Okay, and then so would you know, did they start like from the bottom or they went to the max?
My recollection, everybody started at the max.
Max.
Yeah.
Okay, and then so now it's like because being new, they didn't start from the bottom, and so they went to the maximum, and now we're gonna give them a 4% raise off top of that?
Correct.
Wow, okay. I'm kind of, because like I mentioned before, in the civil service way, like these employees that are the union members, they always get the lowest rate first, and then they move up as the raises come upon them. To me, I think they got their raises already. That's how I feel. Unless they had years of service within the county, I could see that they're getting these raises, but by pushing directly to the top, and when I first got in, that's what I did for my staff. But then, as you know, my staff from 2008 till now never had gotten a raise. Okay, so that's what you got to understand. So you cannot be laughing, because that's what's going to happen with your staff now. You made them to the max, and then now we're going to give them another 4% off of that when they just first coming in. So that's what, it's not real equal to me. Okay, so I might not even be supporting this 4%. Thank you.
Mr. Yoshimoto?
Okay, so to give some perspective, I just want to keep this straightforward because it just calls for 4% across the board. And so for another time, like Mr. Onishi is talking about, Ms. Ford's talking about, Ms. Willie, I think we can address those concerns about where staff starts at and whatnot. But I think for this here today, I just want to keep it on point. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kern?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One point of clarification, Mr. Nishi, I wasn't laughing. I had pressed my thing and it shut off someone else's mic, and then my mic got shut off, so I was nothing to do with what you were talking about. Yeah. So on the other side of it, it's tough. I go back to what we were just looking at with Ms. Ford's amendment. I think our staff does deserve more. There's a difference to me with civil service employees and our staff members as civil service employees have more of a future. I mean, and they have different securities there. They're part of the union. It's just different, you know, so I understand that. Where with our staff, they might be there for 2 years, gone. They don't have that same security. Doesn't mean, you know, we got to overpay, but I think it should be, I don't have any problem with staff getting 4% more than what they're getting right now at all. And I think it was only reasonable to start them where they started right now, because it's tough. Cost of living is expensive, and times are tough. So I support this, and we should vote.
Okay, well, did you want to respond, Mr. Onishi, or your light's on?
Oh, yeah, I mean, could I?
You can.
Are you responding to him, or?
Yeah.
Well,
Otherwise, I'll give
I
Ms.
want to
Poindexter a chance to speak.
Ms. Poindexter can go first.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Poindexter.
Yeah, I just see this as a union and non-union. I worked in a facility, and a lot of organizations have union and non-union positions. You have salary and not hourly positions. They're treated differently because they have a union contract. But when somebody comes in to be a clerk at the Hamakua Health Center, and somebody has years of service, yeah, they have the 1.5% increase on union. But if you're not union and you're coming into another position, I don't care if the other person has 5 years of experience and you coming in and as a salaried non-union position, you come in at the same level. You guys got to go out and go talk to organizations out there on the pay scales, because it's not about the years of service. The job doesn't call for that. That's not what these positions are. So you guys got to go do your homework on that. That kind of, I'm sorry, but it kind of irritates me, because I come from places that pay $10, $11, $12 an hour, you know, and so hearing this to me and us having our staff is a luxury. I see that as a luxury for us. Thanks.
I'm sorry. Mr. Onishi.
Okay, yes, I was going to just mention, like what you mentioned earlier, that the staff should be happy to get a job, as you mentioned earlier, right? Because you're saying people out there in the public are earning like $9, $10, $11 an hour. Okay, so to me, when they coming in and they getting the maximum from like the different pay scales, like say there's 4 different levels, and you give them the maximum, I mean, to me, it's a reward. It's not like guys like in the private sector, like you mentioned, that making like $9, $10 an hour. And so, to me, it's like they already got their raise for what they I guess getting appointed to this position, and I think, as you mentioned earlier too, it's a choice that they wanted to take, right? Okay, so that's the choice that they know that, okay, if I'm coming in, I'm going to be making X amount, and they're going to be okay with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Onishi. Ms. Willie?
I disagree. And I don't think the people that we're bringing in, you can equate them to people that are getting 8, 10, 9, 10, 11, whatever, dollars an hour. I think that they are, at least in my case, and I'm just going to speak from my office, have a lot of qualifications, are finding people's grants, are finding people jobs, are finding people all kinds of things. So I'm just saying the level of work and the level, at least what I expect, is way above those. So I just feel where I have an expectation of a certain job performance, that I feel that should be reflected. And so anyway, I just have a different perspective. And we each are appointing our own, we each have our own offices, so I'm not trying to disagree with how anyone else approaches their office. I don't think it's, and I do agree with, that what Mr. Kanua and Mr. Kern and things, I mean, the union employees, there is a whole nother ball game there. So I think it's just we're all weighing these different things somewhat differently. I did have a separate question for Jay, and that's just the AU and the LE1 and the LE2. Now, these are like the AU and how are these, you said before, like on these other things, everybody's up at the maximum. What about, how are these handled, like whatever AU is and this, and who's selecting what level and how are those jumps made? Or could you just explain a little bit on those sections there?
Those other categories, I believe, pertain to like the legislative auditor's office. They're covered under this as well. So,
So this is the legislative auditor?
yeah, I don't have the book with me, Ms. Willie, so I don't want to tell you specifically this or that. That wasn't an issue last time. Last time we just mainly talked about our staff. So I mean, we can look it up if you want, but it's handled the same way. But there hasn't, as far as I know, hasn't been any increases in the legislative auditor's office because that came under
Okay.
Ms.
Do you
Schrank.
know what step people are at now?
Oh, no,
Like the AU and the LE1 and LE2?
I
and
don't
how-
know. That can be found out though if you want us to go grab that. But they would just be getting the same 4%.
Okay.
Keeping in mind, of course, that I think the people there too, had the 9% furlough decrease and the 4.5% decrease. So, they're in the same situation as our staff is.
Okay, one last quick comment, which I know you could tell me this is unrelated, so I'll say it really fast. And that is the LE2 position. We are still supposed to be filling that, okay, since last winter.
That is the plan.
Thank you. Mr. Kanuha?
Just really quick, these positions, they deserve this increase. With the amendment, our staff deserve that increase. I even agree that with Mrs. Ford's amendment, they deserve that increase, but I'll be supporting this and hope everybody else will as well.
Thank you. Mr. Onishi, one more time.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one
Quick.
last comment, and I just kind of was thinking about this, is that when I mentioned to you guys about like my staff in 2008, we gave them the max. Now, from that time till now, to this new term, my third term, they never had gotten a raise. So they kept at that same level from in 2008 till now. And listening to what's happening now is that the new council members came in, they gave their staff that maximum, okay? And then we have my staff who's been there now for like 5 years, which never got a raise. So to me, to be fair, we should be giving those people the raises. Because then the years that they put in, and what we're talking about experience, they've been there for 5 years. So they have more experience than someone who's just coming in now. So
You need another amendment.
well, and that's what maybe I got to work on this next coming around. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further discussion, Mr. Clerk, on Resolution 132-13.
Ms. Ford?
Halua.
Mr. Ligan?
Aye.
Mr. Kanuha?
Aye.
Mr. Kern?
Aye.
Mr. Onishi?
No.
Ms. Poindexter?
Aye.
Ms. Willie?
Aye.
Mr. Yoshimoto?
Aye.
Ms. Ford?
Aye.
Chair Yoff?
Aye.
Chair Yoff, you have 8 ayes and 1 no.
Thank you. Resolution is adopted. And I'll turn the chair back over to Chairman Yoshimoto.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sioff. Okay, council members.